Hi there. Today I've got a couple of things I'd like you to do. Firstly, let's go back to the challenge that you got set the other day. So with the 7-day logo challenge, ideally, the way I would like you to tackle this, okay, obviously you have the brief here. Don't forget that if you would like to, I'd highly recommend that you recap the brief. Because there's a video here of Amy telling you exactly what you need to do. But here's a couple of things to get you started, okay? So in terms of working with logos, firstly, you have to click on this link and then you would need to download this file to your device. It's a good idea to do like I've done here and give yourself a folder named ITV Logo Challenge. Then you can click Save and then you can open the folder here and it will show you the logo image. If you then right click on it and click open with Photoshop, it will then actually open in Photoshop. Now that means that you can be sure that the image you're working with is the highest resolution, and you will be able to now manipulate this to make it look like a kind of a wintry logo. So where could we start? If you think about winter, and it's always a good idea to make sure you understand how Photoshop is navigated. So this is the image that you're working on. Down here you have all your tools. The top one, probably the one you'll use quite a lot, which is the move tool. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, give myself a little bit of working room. I'm then going to try and think about how would I customize this in terms of making it look wintry. You should also make sure that you can see your layers. So under window, you get all the different things. So if you're working with different brushes, if you open up brushes, for example, you can see the brushes. You can actually add these things over here as well so that you can see them. Or you can equally just get rid of them or float them around. Or if you want to reset your workspace, you can go back here and just reset the workspace to kind of essentials, which puts everything there so you can see it. So you've got your layers down here. If I click on this layer has just got this image on it. The checkerboard in the background shows you that this is a transparent background. So you can now start to add things to this image. If I click this button here down the bottom of my layers, it gives me a new layer. So that means that I can then add things on top of this layer. So I might, for example, look through my brushes. There is a way you can append these brushes as well by clicking here. You can add the legacy brushes, that will give you certain brushes. You can also search. So this big snowflake that I've got, I found by just searching for snowflake. I chose a snowflake brush, turned it up a bit, and there I've got some snowflakes. That might be one way that you can embellish it. You can also just change the settings here. So if I don't like it, the snowflake like that, I can turn it around a bit. If I want to space it out a bit more, I can space it out like this. And the advantage is I'm drawing on top of this layer. So this layer, if I don't like it, I can just drag it to the bin and get rid of it. Let's put another layer up there. I might also just browse through my brushes. So if I get rid of my search criteria here, I've got other brushes as well. There's like general brushes, there's dry brushes, there's wet brushes, there's like special effects brushes. In fact, in the special effects one, you'll see the splatter effect. And again, that's quite nice for showing kind of snow. So if I make sure the color over here is white, then I can kind of put some snow on my ITV Academy. Maybe you think that looks a bit too much like paint. Also, if you want to add other things, if you go to a web browser, you can use sites like Vecteezy is a very good one. That'll give you vector images. Vector images look very graphical, so you can see on here I've already searched for sort of Christmas hats. I can also look for, let's say if I look for an iceberg, I could use one of these. If I put the license type, I can find all the free ones. So here's lots of free graphics that I can use within my ITV logo. So I might decide like, okay, I'm going to use this iceberg. I'll download that. It then will download. It will go to your folder, which normally on a Mac, you can make sure you do save properly. So save in your folder. You can see it's already saved as iceberg. If I click save, It then goes to my downloads, which if you're using Chrome will come up here. You can then very easily click the thing. When it downloads a vector, it downloads it in a zip file. So I do have to double click on it. It will then open that, and then if I open it, if you double click on the EPS file, that is a vector image, and it will just open in Photoshop. It'll ask you to rasterize it, because what you're doing is converting a vector image to a raster image. A raster image is made up of pixels, and a vector image is made up of a mathematical equation. So if I click OK, it will just turn this raster image into a pixelated image, but it's still very good resolution. So that's quite useful, because it means that I can then click, for example, Command A. That puts a selection around the image I want to use. So I'm selecting all with Command A. I can press Command C to copy it. I can then go back to the thing that I want to place it on and press Command V, and it will paste it. Now you can see it's a very big image, so I need to go back to my move tool and I need to resize it. It's also got a white background, which isn't going to work for the brief, because the brief needs to make it transparent. So if you're removing a white background from something that's completely contrasting, the easiest tool to use to do that would be something called the Magic Wand tool. The Magic Wand tool will select whole pixels. So it's up here, okay, and it's called Magic Wand tool. If I click on a white background, you see it puts a selection around it. Then if I press the backspace delete section, it just gets rid of everything. Then you have this kind of selection left over, but which I want to deselect. So you can press Command D to deselect that, and that leaves me with my iceberg. Now I could place my iceberg in the middle of the logo here, so I might sort of select all of my layers if I want to move everything and move it up a little bit. Maybe I'm happy with that. But now I want to kind of split this, because I quite like this middle logo to be kind of cracked in the middle. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a tool called the pen tool, which allows me to draw a path and then create a selection. But it can create a selection in any shape you like. So if I want to cut this particular bit of the image in half, I can use these eyes to just kind of get rid of anything else that's there while I work on something. So I'm focusing just on this image. So if I just use my pen tool to draw basic lines, so I'm getting a kind of a jagged edged, you know, around this ITV Academy logo, then I can join up the two dots here, creating a shape, and then make it into a selection. When you make a selection, I can then press Command C to copy what's in that glowing line. We call them dancing ants. And then press Command V, and it will then paste another section. So what I'm left over with is that cut out section of the Academy's logo. Obviously, I've now got to do the other half. So to do the other half, I need to be able to see where this jagged line is, so I can copy the same thing on the other half of the image and cut it out. So to do that, because if I put it there, look, I can't even see it. But I can use layer styles. So if you double click on any layer, you can actually get a layer style, which means that I could put a drop shadow on this, and then I can see where that line is. It also gives it a little bit more texture. So you can play around here with the distance, the spread, the size of that drop shadow, you know, however you want to make it look is entirely up to you. But for the purposes of cutting out the other half of the shape, I need to be able to see that. So I can now see that. I'm now going to go back to my layer one. So I'm selecting this layer. I'm going back onto my pen tool, and I'm just going to go over these lines, look. So I get a selection on the other half of the logo that is the same jagged line, okay? And I've just gone over a little bit there, so I can undo. Or if you get really tied up in knots, you can actually, what's nice is you can go to window and you get a line of history here. So you can actually look at what steps you've just done. See all those anchor points there? That's where I'm at. If I wanted to go all the way back to here and start again, I can do. But I'm going to leave it on this point. And I'm going to pick up from here. So I've got my anchor point here. Then this bit outside doesn't matter because it's transparent. So I'm just drawing a selection. I want to be able to select a piece of the logo and then cut that bit out. So I'm going to make this a selection. So I've joined up the dots. I've got this kind of weird jagged shape. I'm going to make that selection, click OK. You then press Command C to copy what's in that selection, Command V to paste it, and lo and behold, I've now got two bits of the Academy's logo. I haven't got the ITV bit though, so I'd need to get that as well before I continue. So to get the ITV bit, it's a little bit easier if I click on it and then click off that. As you can see, there's the ITV logo. If you just want to isolate one bit, you don't need to use that. You can just use the normal selection tool, because I can just draw a rectangle around that. Press Command C, Command V. You see it's made a new layer here. So that's now that bit. So now I've got these separate layers, look, and I can work with them. So if I get rid of the original whole logo, and I'm just looking at that. Also, I put this drop shadow on. I quite like that drop shadow, so I'm going to copy that layer style. So if I right click on it, I can copy the layer style, go on the other half of my correct bit, paste that layer style, and then that will also look like that. So we're beginning to develop this logo into a kind of winterized version. I'm going to move that a little bit like that, so it's almost like the iceberg is breaking through it. Move that a little bit, move it over a little bit, move this up a little bit, and then I'm going to unmute my iceberg. My iceberg's there now, but I think it's in the wrong place. So you see how the layer's above everything? Let's see what happens if I drop it behind. Maybe looks a bit more natural, okay? And maybe I'll play around with the scale now. So because it's an iceberg. Or another thing you could do is maybe put one half of it. So if I moved it up one layer, look, I've got it just kind of bursting out there. So it's as if it got smashed on an iceberg or something. Then I could, if I wanted to, so I'm happy with that. If you press Command minus and Command plus, you can zoom in and out. So it gives you a good perspective. But the majority of the time, you always return to this move tool because you want to be able to move things around. So I might do that. Now, big debate in the other class was this on brief? So I'll let you decide that. I know Laura gave some specific rules about what you could do. As far as I'm aware, it was don't change the color and don't change the font. So I personally don't think I'd change the color or the font of this logo. But to make it more wintery, I will add a bit of snow. So I could go with my sort of graphical snowflake, which is this sort of brush. I might choose that as a brush. You see it's got this no entry sign. That's because I need to put a new layer above so that I can then paint on. You can see there's my snowflake. Let's turn it up a little bit. So I'm going to turn the snowflake up a bit, start drawing some snowflakes. I might not like that style, or I might think, oh, it's not enough, it's too much, it needs to be bigger. And if you do that, it's going to come out in a big long line, but you have got brush settings here, so I could space them out a bit. That way, when I draw the thing across, it just puts some snowflakes around. I've just decided I don't like that at all though. I think it looks rubbish. So instead, I'm going to do a new layer and try something else. But I can mute this layer with those snowflakes. I always go back to it if I want to. I'm going to try the other brush. So I prefer maybe something a bit more like a splatter, like this brush maybe. See, because I think that looked a bit better. So I'm just going to put a few little snow drops. So it's a bit more realistic kind of looking snow, in my opinion, and I'm going to splatter that around the iceberg as well, so it gives it a cold feel. Okay, once you're happy with your logo, that's my version 1. I'm then going to go to File, I'm going to go to Export, and I'm just going to do a quick export as a PNG. I've then got I will call this version 1. Okay, and then you can do a little underscore if you want. That's quite a good technique for naming files. I'm going to leave it in my ITV Logo Challenge folder, press save, and then I'm going to put that on my WordPress along with 5 other variations of it. Okay, and that's just a few little tips and tricks that you can do with Photoshop to make your logo. All right, have a little play around with it and see what you come up with.